Greetings, everyone. This is our second class on remedies. I want to quickly review where we are in the study of remedies and then add the new material that we want for tonight, look at some practice problems. First of all, you recall that in remedies there are two basic classes of remedies, and those are remedies for breach of contract and remedies for the torts. You recall that in the remedies for breach of contract, I'll put it over here. So this is a summary for breach of contract. You recall that the remedies are damages for breach of contract. Let me strike that. Okay. For breach of contract, yes, I'm sorry, we did it this way. Damages, restitution, and specific performance. Under damages for breach of contract, you recall that there are several kinds of damages that the bar examiners expect you to know about. The kinds of damages that the bar examiners expect you to know about are the expectancy damages. Now, this expectancy is also called benefit of the bargain. What were you going to get out of this deal? And the key purpose of the law of contracts is when you have formed a contract and someone breaches it, you want it to look to the innocent party economically the same as though the contract has been performed. And so if I promise to make a bargain with you, and a bargain is about some kind of an economic exchange, always. It's not about love and affection or something. So the bargain is going to be about property. So I make a bargain with you about services or property, and then if I don't do what I promised you to do, then we figure out how many dollars it takes to get that done for you, and that's the damages that you're entitled to get from me. So that overall what you ended up with is what you bargained for. And that's the purpose of the law of contracts, and you need that fundamental piece of structure, enforcement of contracts, in order for the entire economy to run. And by most of the economy is about trading, and most of the time what people trade is promises. That it is no more this business where I hand you my bow and you hand me your arrows, and that's our trade. And there are these complicated connections of promises that put together our commerce now. And in order for the commerce to work properly, these promises need to be enforceable. And so one key purpose of the law of contract is to make it look to the innocent party just as though economically the contract was performed, and that helped to keep the structure of commerce together. Without that, you couldn't really do it. And so these damages that you're entitled to get are the expectancy, the benefit of your bargain. What is it you're going to get out of this bargain that you wouldn't otherwise have? And that's what makes the economy run. So, benefit of the bargain. Now, these damages that we call the expectancy or benefit of the bargain, you recall that these damages must be actual, causal, foreseeable, and unavoidable. And when I say unavoidable, I mean the same as the duty to mitigate. We all know about the duty to mitigate damages. So mitigate damage, that's not very good writing, but I think we can make that out okay. So the damages, your expectancy damages, must not be too speculative in amount. That's what the actual means, not too speculative. Causal, that is, the damage that you are trying to collect was caused by the breach, that but for the breach of contract you would have that benefit, whatever it was. I was going to sell you my car for $1,000, and my car is really only worth $800 on the open market. So I have a $200 benefit in that deal. And so if you refuse to buy my car, I should be able to sue you to get the $200, and that puts me in the same position I would have been in if you had performed, because if you had performed, I would have the $1,000 for the car, and you would have the car. If you don't perform, what I have is the $800 car, which I can sell at any time for $800, and the $200 damages that I got from you. And so to me, it looks just as though the contract was performed. So these damages must be actual in amount, meaning not too speculative, causal in the but-for sense, but for the breach, I would have had that benefit. Foreseeable, the damages that you can collect must be the damages which were foreseeable when the contract was formed. And that's the Hadley versus Baxendale case, and you recall from our discussion last week, if I am a rock band and I make a contract to you to play for you and for a certain amount of money, and I should foresee at that time that if I breach my contract, I'm just kind of an ordinary rock band. I'm a good rock band, but I'm not famous. And so you paid me kind of ordinary prices, $5,000 or something, to come and play that night, and that was our contract. Well, after we made that contract, but before it was time for me to come play, I became very famous because one of my tunes hit the top. And so now people are paying me $100,000 to come and perform. And I got a contract with you to come and do it for $5,000. Well, if I breach that contract with you, the damages that you can get are the damages which were foreseeable at the time we formed our contract. And when we formed our contract, I was a little-known band, and you expected a normal crowd to come and watch me, but nothing like now. So you won't be able to get the damages that you would get, pardon this back to say the other way. The only damages you can get from me are the damages which were foreseeable when you and I formed the contract, which won't be that much. And that's why it's in my best interest to go ahead and breach the contract and pay you that. So the damages must be foreseeable when the contract was formed. Don't forget that here there are two classes of foreseeable damages. Damages can be foreseeable in the sense that they are generally foreseeable, or they may be specifically foreseeable. The general foreseeability in the case of breach of contract, what kinds of damages are generally foreseeable? Well, in the case of breach of contract, the damages that you ordinarily expect to flow from this type of breach of this type of contract, those damages are called general damages. And those are always foreseeable. So these foreseeability branch here, just put the rest of the branch in there. Here, where it says foreseeable, from here, these can be specifically, let me switch this the other way around, this will be easier. The damages can be generally the damages which anybody would expect to flow from this type of breach of this type of contract, those are called general damages. Those are always foreseeable. For example, if I am building a house for you and I'm supposed to finish by a certain date and I don't, I finish a month late, well, just make it easy. I'm building an apartment house for you and it's got 6 units in it. and I finished 1 month late. Well, what's your damage? Well, you lost a month's rent. And you don't even have to go to law school to know that. If I'm paying you $1,000 for an $800 car, the damages which are foreseeable are the benefit of my bargain. I had a $200 benefit in there, and I'm going to want to correct that. If I am building a house, if I'm building a house for you, you're a homeowner, and I'm a contractor, and you hire me to build a house for you for $100,000, and I start building it, contract enforceable and all that, and I start building this house, and about halfway through, I breach the contract. I just walk away. Well, if I walk away, I'm the breaching party, so what do? What do we expect you to do? These are the general damages now. The harm we would ordinarily expect is that what you'll do is you'll hire some third person to come in and finish the job. And so when the third person comes in to finish the job, let's say the third person comes in and they charge you $70,000 to finish the job. Now you had a contract with me where I was supposed to do it for $100,000. I started doing it and then I breached. But I was partway through. I was more than halfway through. And so when you hire this other person to come in and finish the job, they charge you only $70,000 to finish the job. And so now you have a finished product that's worth $100,000 that you only paid $70,000 for. Because you paid the second builder to finish it, but you never paid me anything. So you've got the $100,000 structure, okay, but you've only paid $70,000. And so, then you are being unjustly enriched. And so what I can then do is to bring an action against you to prevent your unjust enrichment. Say, well, I did do some work, and you should give me at least $30,000 for the work that I did, so that altogether you would have paid $100,000. Now, I cannot sue you for breach of contract because I'm the one who walked away on the job when it was partly done. So I'm clear of the breaching party, so I cannot sue you, the homeowner, for breach of contract. But you, the homeowner, you've got your structure built for $100,000, and you, the homeowner, only paid $70,000 to get that. And so, and the reason is because I did all this work first. And so I'm going to sue quasi-contract to prevent your unjust enrichment and try to get that difference for myself. Okay? So so I would sue quasi-contract. So the point I'm getting at here, we were talking about damages for breach of contract, and so when I breach the contract, and you don't need to sue me for damages for breach, because right now you got a finished house for $100,000 and you only paid $70,000, so you wouldn't do that. But let's suppose that same situation where now you paid me $50,000 of the $100,000. You paid me $50,000, and I walked away from the job. That's my breach. And now you bring on someone else to finish the job, and it costs $70,000 for them to finish, just like before. Only this time you have to pay the second builder the $70,000. You pay the person who came in, the third party who came in to finish the job. Remember, let's be sure we got the facts straight now. This time, it's a $100,000 contract. I'm to build a house for you for $100,000. And I'm sorry, just 1 second, please. We don't know? Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay, let's pick up where we were. Let's be sure the facts are clear. The facts are that you're the homeowner and I'm the contractor and I'm building a house for you for $100,000. Halfway through, you paid me $50,000. And I walked away from the job and did not finish it. You hired Mary to come in and finish the job. Mary charged you $70,000 to finish the job. You paid Mary the $70,000. You have your finished house. But you had a contract with me where I was supposed to give you a finished house for $100,000. And you look at all the money you spent. You gave me $50,000, you gave Mary $70,000, you spent $120,000 to get the structure when you were supposed to get it from me for $100,000. So when you sue me, those are the $20,000 damages that you would seek to recover, and those are general damages, and those are always foreseeable. So those general damages are you don't have to say anything about them. When you form the contract, you don't need to say that, if you don't deliver the goods to me, I'm going to go buy the goods somewhere else, and if I have to buy them somewhere else and they cost more money, then you owe me that difference. You don't have to say any of that stuff. Okay, it's just understood that that's the way the law of contracts works. And that if I breach the contract, those are the ordinary damages that everybody with common sense expects to flow from that type of breach of that type of contract. So general damages are defined as the damages that one would ordinarily expect to flow from this type of breach of this type of contract. So general damages are the damages one would ordinarily expect to flow from this type of breach of this type of contract. And you don't have to claim them or do anything special. But specific damages are damages which occurred beyond the damages that you ordinarily expect to flow. And in order to be able to collect damages which are beyond the general damages, the person you're contracting with needs to know at the time they make the bargain, so they can include that concept, that realization in their bargain. That person needs to know that if I breach, there's all these other damages that you expect to collect from me. Okay? And if I don't know that, if you don't do something to make those other damages foreseeable, then you can never collect them from me. But all you can collect are the damages which were foreseeable when the contract was formed, and without something special, the damages that are foreseeable when the contract was formed are the general damages, the harm you would expect to flow from this type of breach of this type of contract. Anything beyond that ordinary expectancy is a special damage, and you can't collect it unless you make it foreseeable to the person who may have to pay it. You make it foreseeable to them at the time the bargain is being made, so they can take that into account. So those are called special damages, and we have various other names for them. They call them specific damages. They're called special damages. They're called consequential damages. They're called Hadley versus Baxendale damages. I was named after the famous case. And they all mean the same thing. That you can't, they're beyond the general damages, and therefore you cannot collect them unless you make them foreseeable at the time the bargain is being made. So, getting back to the breach of contract, remedies for breach of contract are the expectancy damages, benefit of the bargain, and that damage must be actual, causal, foreseeable, and by foreseeable we mean both generally and specifically foreseeable, or you can always collect the general damage because these are always foreseeable. The general damage is always foreseeable because the name is those damages you ordinarily foresee to expect and so forth. So general damages are always foreseeable. It's these, the special damages, that you have to do something to make them foreseeable, otherwise the other party is not bound to pay those special damages. And finally, the damages must be unavoidable, By that, we simply mean there's a duty to mitigate. Once you know the other side has breached the contract, you cannot just continue to run up damages. You have to make reasonable effort to mitigate damages. And I just call that unavoidable. It doesn't matter which way you call it. Duty to mitigate. So the expectancy damages must meet these requirements, A, C, F, U. But there's another type of damage, besides the expectancy, is the there's reliance damages, there's incidental damages. Let's put the incidental damages in here next. Now the incidental damages must be actual, causal, foreseeable, unavoidable, just like the others. The incidental damages are the cost to cover. Now, if I'm a manufacturer and you're supposed to be supplying parts to me, and you don't supply the parts, and I buy them someplace else, well, it may cost me a bit more money to buy them someplace else, and of course you owe me that, and that's a general damage. Everybody foresees that. But it also costs me internal labor for my employees to go out and renegotiate another widget contract with somebody else when they already had one with you. And these costs can be significant because, for example, maybe in order to make a contract to buy widgets, one of my people has to fly across country to do a physical inspection of the gadgets or something. And so you can see that my incidental cost, the cost of carrying out the cover, should also be recoverable, and it is. So those costs must be actual in amount, meaning not too speculative, causal in the sense that but for the breach, this incidental cost would not have occurred. Foreseeable, and again, this foreseeable, if it's normally foreseeable that if I breach the contract with you and you have to find a way to get replacement goods, that there's this incidental cost if you're doing that's foreseeable by me. But suppose for some odd reason that your cost of getting this new contract to buy a widget someplace else skyrockets. So your incidental cost of covering skyrockets. Well, that wasn't foreseeable by me when the contract was formed. Okay, so I'm not liable for that. But I am liable for the ordinary cost, incidental cost. And so the incidental cost must be foreseeable and unavoidable, meaning duty to mitigate again. So the kinds of damages we have are benefit of the bargain damages, the incidental damages. Now, there is another kind of damage called reliance damage. Reliance damages. These reliance damages are money that I spent in reliance on expecting someone else to perform. For example, suppose I am a famous musician and I'm coming to town and you are going to promote my show here in town. That's what you do. You're a promoter. And so you will place ads in the newspaper and do all the things that people do to promote these rock stars when they come into town. Well, I breached my contract, and I didn't come to town when I said I was. And so now what are your damages? Well, for one thing, your damages are the lost profits you would have made if I had performed. And let's suppose that you have been in the business long enough that you can show with enough certainty how much profit you would have made if I had performed. So that loss of profit that you would have made, let's suppose that's $100,000 you would have made if I had performed. Okay? So we're saying out of all the money that you spent getting me promoting and all that sort of stuff, and you paid for the ushers and you paid for the space and all that stuff, out of all that, you're going to get all that back, and you're going to get $100,000 above that. And that's your $100,000 profit. And you can prove that if I had performed, you would have made a $100,000 profit. Okay, so now what happened, however, is that after you have spent $30,000 on newspaper ads and TV ads and billboards, you spent $30,000. Now I say to you, I'm not going to perform. I breach. Okay? And you say, okay. And now I say, well, you were going to make $100,000 profit if I had performed. Here's your $100,000 profit. Well, you can see you haven't been made whole. You just got your $100,000 profit, but you didn't get the $30,000 that you spent on the newspaper ads and the radio and TV and so forth. So the message is that when I breached my contract, after you have spent $30,000 by buying newspaper ads and the normal things you're expected to do, you spent $30,000 doing that, and now I come in and breach. Well, just to get you back to zero, I got to give you that $30,000. Well, that $30,000 are your reliance damages, money you spent in reliance on expecting me to perform. And so you need to get those reliance damages back just to get to zero. So you want the reliance damages in addition to the benefit of your bargain. But again, these reliance damages, cannot be something that was never expected when we formed our contract. When we formed our contract, I expected you to rely on me. I expected you to hire newspaper, to place newspaper ads. I expected you to rent space if you have to do that. I expected you to do all those normal things. And so all the expense of all that stuff would be reliance damages. But those damages must be actual in amount, not too speculative, causal, foreseeable, meaning that if they're way out of line, it wasn't foreseeable when the contract was formed, don't have to pay that. But the ordinary damages, for example, let me suppose that you normally spend about $50,000. Suppose you normally spend about $50,000 promoting an artist like me. And that's what you ordinarily spend, about $50,000 when I'm coming to town, and you have a big show and all that stuff. So you normally spend about that amount. Now I'm coming to town, and guess what? Instead of you spending the normal $50,000 for a promotion, as everybody expected to do, you spend $1 million promoting my appearance. Nobody expected that. And now I breach. And you say you want your $1 million back. You see the problem. That was not foreseeable when the contract was formed. That's part of your reliance damages, but the reliance damages must be foreseeable and when the contract was formed. And I just gave you an example where a person spent $1 million reliance damages way beyond what was foreseeable. So you don't have to pay that. So the damages that you can collect for breach of contract are the benefit of the bargain expectancy damages, incidental damages, reliance damages, and there's one more here, liquidated damages. We talked about that one last week, so I'm not going to go through that one again right now. So this last one here is the liquidated damage. I'll just put it in here. Liquidated damages, so-called negotiated damages. Okay. So if there's been a breach of contract, these are the kinds of damages you can get. Restitution. Restitution is when you really never got a contract together. Okay, you tried to form a contract, thought you had one. I said, but you never really had a contract, and yet one person has given value to the other in the belief that they had a contract. Well, that person doesn't need to be unjustly enriched, and so they restore back whatever benefit benefits that they got when there was no contract, restitution. We also call that quasi-contract restitution. They'll just give me back my stuff. In the music hypothetical, let me suppose that you normally, I'm the musician, you gave me, besides, everything else, you gave me a $10,000 advance on my earnings when I was going to get there. So whatever portion of the gate I was going to get, you're giving me a $10,000 advance on that. Okay, well, I've got the $10,000, and after I get that, I breach. I tell you I'm not coming. And so you gave me $10,000. You also spent $30,000 promoting my appearance, just to get back to our original facts. You spent $30,000 promoting my appearance. You gave me an advance of $10,000. Okay, and after all that happened, I breached. And now that I breached the contract, well, you want to get your $30,000 that you gave to the TV stations, you want to get that back just to get back to zero. Okay? And you also gave me $10,000 advance. Well, you want to get that $10,000 back also just to get back to zero. Well, that money that you gave me qualifies as Reliance Damages. You paid me that $10,000 and Reliance expecting me to go ahead and perform. So you get that $10,000 back. Now that is not, you don't have to go through actual causal, foreseeable, unavoidable. Because all you're really doing is saying, give me back my stuff. You gave me $10,000, you're saying, give me back the $10,000 I gave you. So you don't go through the actual causal, foreseeable, unavoidable, and all that. So that is where the restitution is about. And it's just, again, just give back my stuff. And then finally, specific performance. And you know the rules here for getting the breaching party to specifically perform their contract. And the bar examiners often ask about specific performance. And the moniker we use is, I'm doing fine, Mom and Dad. And this is for specific performance, inadequate remedy of law. I'm doing fine, Mom and Dad. I for inadequate remedy of law. D for definite contract terms. F for feasible to enforce. M is for mutuality of obligation. And what that means is simply that if the court is going to make me do something for you, like I've got to convey Blackacre to you because the court says so, then they're going to make sure that you pay me for it. And that's all this is. So and it's common sense, and in a way it doesn't even belong there. And the D is for defenses, latches, unclean hands, constitutional defenses. So this is how we get an injunction, I for inadequate remedy of law. And this is what contract remedies are all about. Now, tort remedies are similar. I'm going to put the tort remedies on the board now because I want you to see where the problems occur in these two classes of remedies problems. They occur at the damages and at the foreseeability points primarily, and also some of the restitutionary remedies present problems. I want you to see where the problems fit in the total structure so that you will write with that perspective in mind. So we understand what happens with breach of contract now. I'm going to erase this material here where we took this foreseeable, and the foreseeable always breaks into general and specific. General is the damage you'd ordinarily expect. Specific is beyond that you had to make it clear when the contract was formed. Okay, so we now understand the contract remedies. Now let's talk about tort remedies. This is a quick review from last week also. And next come our tort remedies. And the tort remedies The tort remedies are three in kind. Whenever you have a problem of this sort, look at all three types of remedies to see if they ask you what remedies are available, there's only three possibilities. These three that we're putting on the board. In case of contract, then the remedies for a breach of contract here are damages, restitution, specific performance. And realizing that the damages break up this way, the restitution is just give me back my stuff, and specific performance has these elements. And you analyze according to these elements. In case you're asking about the remedies for a breach of contract, here they are, these three things. Over here with torts, if it's a remedy for a tort, likewise there are three things, and those three things are damages and restitution and injunction. Very similar to contracts. Contracts, you recall, is damages and restitution and specific performance. Always analyze the remedies question with these three, starting with these three big pieces, because these are the three kinds of remedies. And then they break down into the parts we've shown. Whereas if it's a torts problem and you're looking for tort remedies, then the three classes of remedies that you always go through are damages, restitution, and injunction. And you need to know the breakdown here so you can apply it to the facts. For damages, in the case of torts, the damages are compensatory damages, and these are also called out-of-pocket. The idea behind tort damages, these out-of-pocket damages, is really rather different from the idea behind breach of contract type damages. In the case of breach of contract, what we're trying to do is to make it look to the innocent party as though the contract was performed, so far as the economics is concerned. So remember, that's why we don't have punitive damages for breach of contract ever, because it has nothing to do with making the system of commerce work. You go to the tort law if you want to punish somebody for their bad behavior, or your wounded feelings, or the fact that you're upset about the breach of contract. You go to tort law. Contract law is concerned only with making that contract look economically as though it was performed, because you need that feature in your economic system in order for the engine to run. The system runs on promises, and promises need to be enforceable. And that's what you mean by enforceable, make it look like it's happened. So breach of contract, the purpose of damages is to accomplish that. The purpose of restitution is just give me back my stuff, and specific performance. We know what that purpose is about. In the case of the tort law, the purpose of tort law is to make it appear to the victim of the tort as though the tort did not occur, best you can. You make it appear to the person as though the tort did not occur. And so, if you are negligent and you hit the fender of my car, and you dent the fender, and it costs $500 to fix my fender, I take it to the body and fender shop, and I have to go into my pocket and pay the body and fender person $500. That's my out-of-pocket loss. Now I've got my car back the way it was, and you owe me $500. That's my out-of-pocket loss. Now I realize that there's a certain amount of nuisance that I had to go through to get my car fixed. You know, I had to take it to the shop and all that sort of stuff. Well, if I can prove loss of wages during that time, if I can, if that's part of my loss of wages, I may be able to collect it. But if I don't have lost wages, there's just no mechanism built into the system to compensate me for the incidental tort costs. Whereas in the case of incidental damages for sale of goods, the incidental damages for sale of goods, the UCC provides that you can collect incidental damages for sale of goods. But the incidental damages for breach of a service contract, you just don't seem to be able to collect those. Incidental damages related to a tort, we don't collect those. Okay? And you may get punitive damages or something, but you don't get any incidentals. So in the case of tort law, all we are really trying to pay is that when I went to the fender place and got my fender repaired, and they gave me back my car, I had to reach in my pocket and pay the $500. Okay? And that's my out-of-pocket loss, and that's what I can get back from you. I do not get those other nuisance costs. If I lost time from work, you can prove it, I can get that also. If I'm injured, of course, and have medical bills, then I can get that also. If I'm injured and I have pain and suffering, maybe I can get that too. Okay? But we don't pay incidentals. Okay. So in the case of tort law, I get compensatory damages, and we try to compensate the person for all these kinds of things: loss of property, loss of wages, damage to property, etc., etc. So we try to reduce a lot of stuff to money and compensate. Somebody loses a finger, we reduce it to money and compensate them. Those are all your compensatory damages, and they are often referred to as out-of-pocket. The other type of damages here is punitive damages. You get punitive damages only when the offense is an intentional tort committed with malice. You can also get punitive damages for breaches of a fiduciary duty. And I don't know if you want to consider that an intentional tort or not, but people who have fiduciary duties like trustees and a few others, the breach of one of those fiduciary duties, one can get punitive damages. It's done maliciously. So you get punitive damages when there are two situations. One is an intentional tort committed with malice, and the other is the breaches of fiduciary duties. You can get punitive damages. So that's the punitive. The restitution in tort law is an area of major testing. There are so many ways that a person may get restitution, and that's what makes the area very testing. We're going to be looking at some of our problems tonight where you see these areas that we're talking about getting tested. Damages is tested a lot, but we have a good idea of what you're trying to do with damages in contract law, benefit of the bargain, make it look like it was performed, and what you're trying to do in the case of tort law, and that is to compensate people for their loss, but not the incidental stuff, for their loss of hearing, for their loss of property, for their loss of life. You compensate them for their pain and suffering, compensate them, and that's what the damage is for. Restitution, we're saying that there are lots of ways that in tort law, the restitution is basically give me back my stuff. And there are a number of mechanisms that may be used to get your stuff back. We're going to put them on the board here in a minute. But I want you to first make this distinction. That is that there's one class of cases where where I've given you some of my stuff and I want to get it back. That's one class of problems. But there's another class of problems where I didn't give you my stuff, but I got paid by somebody else to commit an intentional tort against you. Somebody paid me $1,000 to beat you up. Somebody paid me $1,000 to interfere with your contract. Somebody paid me $1,000 to commit some intentional tort against you. Abusive process, malicious prosecution. So they paid me money to commit this intentional tort. When you find out about it, you not only get the damages that I have caused you, okay, and some punitive damages, so maybe I won't do it again, but in addition to those two, you also, whatever, if somebody paid me $1,000 to do this, society doesn't want to let me keep the $1,000. Somebody paid me $10,000 to beat you up, and once you find out about it, you sue us and all the other damages and havoc that you can bring on us. In addition to that, I got the $10,000 to do this dirty deed. You can get that $10,000. Okay? That's under a doctrine called equitable restitution. We'll be talking about that. But what I wanted you to see is that the two classes of restitution that are going to come up here under restitution, the two classes of restitution are, one, those where you've gotten something. Maybe you got it from me, or in conversion you got my stuff, for example. Maybe I can trace my stuff into something you've got. And so the one class of problem is where you got some stuff that I'm entitled to get back, and the other cases are where I have been paid money to commit this intentional tort. Well, society doesn't want me to keep that money, so you get to collect that also. So those are the two classes of problems we want to talk about in restitution. And in the course of looking at this restitution, you will see, for example, that one of the things I get to do is to trace my money. Okay? Somebody defrauded me of money, and they bought an airplane with it, and they sold the airplane, and they bought a painting, and they sold a painting, and they put it in the bank account. I can trace my money right into that bank account. And these tracing processes are part of restitution. We'll be talking about those. Okay? So that's what restitution is about. Let's take a break and come back and deal with it.